Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Keilani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Keilani. I'm joined with James.
Hi, guys.
And today we are going to talk about Inside Out 2.
Yes!
Which you saw before me with your kids. And I just saw last week, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. With Oakley.
And I had said that I believe that should be required watching for mental health professionals. And after seeing it, would you agree with that?
I think that anyone who definitely works with kids, but it's actually highlighting the parts work that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And they're using, we could say internal family systems, but parts work was around before IFS.
Okay.
And it's really highlighting that idea of different parts sometimes taking over and what is the core hurt or the thing that starts to change the way that we respond to our environment and bring in more protective parts like anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. I talked to my kids prior to seeing that about remember when you reacted to Running by NF?
Yeah.
How he's speaking to one of his parts.
Yeah, NF and Ren have had music videos that really feature some of those different parts in very creative ways.
Yeah, well, my kids, they like NF. And so I explained that song to them, and they were they couldn't quite grasp it. So then we watched Inside Out. And I was like, remember that conversation about speaking to your toxic inner self and how you can leave that behind, And I was like, that's anxiety, right? And they were like, it brought it full circle. Yeah. And I was so thankful to actually get that they got to learn that little lesson at such an early age, because that's going to be something they'll battle with for the rest of their life,
Yeah, trying to understand that part and to speak to it with some compassion, which is one of the points that I wanted to make too as we talk about the movie.
Yeah.
I think more so than wanting every therapist to watch it, it's probably wanting parents to watch it with their kids so they can have conversations like that.
Totally.
And then to have discussions about it, not just leave it in the movie theater, but to really take some time to reflect, take some time to make sense of how it fits with you.
Yeah. Well, parents, if you don't want to have a conversation with your kids about it, then just put this episode on so that they can see it, because we're about to have a conversation. So,
But yeah, it might inspire conversation they could come back to as well if that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, and I watched Inside Out, the first one, the week before in preparation, and I liked both of them. If I'm going to be really honest, maybe this is a hot take. I liked the first one a little bit more.
Oh, that's not, I don't think that's a hot take.
Okay.
Normally, the controversial is liking the sequel better. I'm so sorry. I'm struggling with my mic because I feel like it's too far this way, but I'll just leave it for now.
Okay, I know. Yeah, sorry. We had our guest last week and our mics are shifted.
Oh, yeah. Which was amazing guest.
So amazing.
That is now our most viewed podcast episode.
Wow, that's so special. If you haven't watched, please check out Cassie's story.
Yeah.
A story of resilience. And maybe we might be able to throw in some things as we unpack this episode that tie into some of her story too.
Yeah, for sure.
In Inside Out 2, they are exploring the complexities of puberty. I remember hating that word when I was a preteen. It's cringe.
I'm still not super fond of that word.
No, it's not. I don't like it. I don't like to say it.
And
puberty, ew.
And then everything that the shortened pubes, things like that.
Right.
Nothing.
That doesn't bring any
nothing
good.
pubic is is refreshing sounding.
We'll just refer to it as the change.
I like it.
The change. So when the change arrives, we're in this season as humans where there's more dynamic and complex interpersonal relationships. We're finding more comparison with our peers. And a lot of that, if we come back to our pure basic instinct as humans, is a realization that we really are communal beings and our survival does rely on the relationships that we have.
Yeah.
on our social standing. And that made a lot of sense, a lot more sense when we think about the way that we evolved in growing up in, let's say, a small village and wanting to feel that you had useful tools and skills to help your community thrive.
Yeah.
Now that looks like comparison with others and a lot of ruminating about whether we fit in, how to fit in, and now, enter anxiety, enter embarrassment, enter these new characters, envy, and then what was the other one?
There was like,
what was that, like, too cool?
Yeah, and it was like not maybe boredom, I think. Was
Yeah,
it?
but she had like a French name, Inu.
Yeah.
Ennui. It's what you would call the boredom.
Well, come on up here. Onward. Am I saying right? Onward. No. Oh, nicknames. I'm gonna call you Wee Wee.
No, I'm saying it wrong. How was it? Anyway, you guys know. If you've seen it, you know. If not, that's fine. They didn't have a huge role. They weren't my favorite character. Yeah. We're also, another thing about puberty, obviously, is that like there's changing bodies, so that highlights the comparison, especially in middle school. It's like the strangest land where there's some of the kids in there that still look like they're third graders, and then there's some that look like straight up adults. I remember as an elementary school counselor when it was a K6 and the sixth graders were still down in our grade level. There were some sixth graders that looked like high schoolers, and it was very like body hair, tall. It was weird.
That is weird.
So weird.
I was 5'9" in the seventh grade, so I was I was huge.
Yeah.
But
But see, as a guy, did you enjoy that, or did it feel awkward?
And everyone thought I was gonna be like 6'5", and I grew 2 more inches the rest of my life. Yeah, but so yeah, I was one of those kids that was like
Stood out.
imposing to everyone,
For a while there, and then they caught up with you.
Yeah.
I think there was a very brief period somewhere in the middle of elementary school where maybe there were a few people I was taller than, but I've always kind of been the tiny one. The 5-footer. And I know I've mentioned this too, like having worked in the elementary school, sometimes I'd be walking down the hall and a teacher would be like, "Where's your hall pass?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's me."
I work here.
Yeah, I work here. Like they just saw me from behind.
That's funny.
Anyways, yeah. So I'm a tiny child. That's basically what we learned. So there's more emphasis on friendships and social hierarchy than family. And there's a scene as they are like looking and kind of describing the different islands that have changed in the beginning.
Yeah.
That make up who she is. And Family Island has shrunk down and is kind of off to the side.
Yeah.
Where's Family Island?
It's right there.
Oh, there it is.
And Friendship Island is like raring and ready to go.
Yeah.
Which is, I know your face just got sad. I feel it too. Like as a parent, it is so sad, isn't it?
Well, also like as a kid, like just thinking like the structure and the stability of like family and like that sureness, I guess. And then just thinking back on how, it does shrink as you grow, but it's so sad when you look back and think how safe of a place that was for not for everyone,
right? Not
but
for
like
everyone.
For me, I had like my grandparents who were pillars, and I mean my home life was not all that great, a lot of neglect, but like I can just.
But as we think about even our name, Delightfully Dysfunctional, I think there is delight in the dysfunction.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's good that you are describing that your family island, even though it was not a perfect family situation by any means or home life, there were still really bright, beautiful, loving, caring adults that were there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it was like where life is now. I think back on that, like, oh gosh, it was so easy. All my needs were taken care of, and how great that would be today.
There's more simple emotions that are easier to navigate in childhood, and it's towards. I'm gonna, I guess, kind of jump around and as we share organically, but I recall a quote from Joy, and I'm not going to get it exact, but it was something along the lines as, maybe we experience less joy when we grow up, and realizing she has to share the running of the control panel.
Yeah.
Or it takes more, I think maybe it's more work to experience joy as an adult. And that That is true.
Yeah.
It does take a different navigational process to experience and invite joy in, because part of inviting joy in is also acknowledging the other emotions that are there.
Totally.
Not hiding them, not bottling them up, which we learned from the movie as well.
Yeah.
It has me, there's a few clients that I have and other young people in my life, and it's a little bit sad reflecting on that, because other people who are in this time of the change have said, I'm nervous to grow up. I don't want to grow up. I don't want to be an adult. And there's aspects of that I want to encourage, of course, and help them see some of the joys of freedom, or of taking responsibility, of learning new skills that are really exciting about being an adult. But I can't help but notice, like, there's an honesty to Joy's statement that is bittersweet.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of the mourning process as you grow up too.
Totally. And like, I think it's so important for us as caretakers of our kids to like really be protective of their childhood, because that's such a temporary part of their life, and that's the most formidable part of their life. So like, just that, because it is sad to grow up, especially when you are grown up and you think about how like sweet your childhood actually was when you were in it, or when you were in it, you don't realize. And then that part, like Riley growing up. Okay, so this is a spoiler. I'm jumping around, but like,
we're gonna be dropping lots of spoilers. So warning.
Yeah,
warning.
spoiler alert.
I should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah, it's okay. I will. But because that first internal message, she kept saying, "I'm a good person. I'm a good person." Remember? And then like at that, all of a sudden, anxiety had done her work, and then it like blooms, and she says, "I'm not enough."
Yeah.
That part, I was watching it with my girlfriend too, and like that part, we both like got all emotional, because that's kind of the truth that we all grow into, because all this stuff we don't know how to manage, and it's such a lie, but, and then that's the position that we, like, as we grow up, we live from that, like,
belief.
False
belief.
Exactly. I was gonna say truth, but false belief is way more accurate, because but man, and all of us, when that kept echoing in her mind, I feel like it hit a nerve with every adult in that theater. I'm not enough. It's like, I've definitely felt that.
Exactly. And we've talked about that in terms of a core hurt, or a part of us that we haven't fully accepted. And then that breeds from it this belief of, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm too much, I'm not wanted, I'm not valued, etc., etc. I'm not chosen.
Totally.
And this is where anxiety really comes in, because anxiety is there to analyze and figure out a way to find a sense of security.
Yeah.
But it goes over the top to a place that is maladaptive or not helpful.
Yeah.
Where anxiety is thriving on ruminating over the past or catastrophizing over the future.
Yeah.
It's not a place where joy can really be present. Joy is about being present here in this moment.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as I think about some of the scenes anxiety says to Joy when they meet. I was particularly nervous about meeting you, Joy. Because there's an understanding that both cannot be present and operating that control panel at the same time, really. And we then see anxiety feel threatened. And I find it interesting, too. She really takes embarrassment as her henchman. And you can, like, those are so closely tied, right? Embarrassment and anxiety. This desire, what would I avoid? Like, think about the middle school days. What would you have avoided to not be embarrassed? And you don't want. Well, you have a different flavor of confidence that I've never quite encountered, if I'm being honest. Really? Did you experience a ton of embarrassment in middle school, or did you bypass that?
Well, I mean, I definitely know what you're talking about. I definitely like was a people pleaser, like most of my life, but I was like pretty good at it. And so, because just to touch on that for a second, like because I love that that this movie took place in the perspective of a middle schooler, because there's not really any other point in somebody's life where it's like such a critical, like, coming of age almost. But because, like, middle schoolers, they're kids, but they're trying to be all things to all people, and these are new people that they're like trying to just get a quick gauge on, and then that's why they always arrive at that belief, I'm not enough, because you can't be all things to all people, but like they want to like fit in with these new groups, and like, oh, they're projecting, this person's cool, I want to be with this person, but like it's like, but man, if we could, because like for me, I definitely, that was my experience. I did want to be popular and all things to all people, but I was pretty successful with it. And so I didn't really struggle too much in middle school, but I know that there's a ton of, like, most people's experience is, like a struggle.
Middle school wasn't great for me.
No, yeah. And it's not great. People talk about middle school as like one of the most traumatic experiences of their life, you know?
Yeah. I've mentioned this before. I say to most of my middle school clients and just other middle school age people that I know in my life that you can't pay most adults to relive their middle school years. Like, we're just glad and relieved that it's survived. Over. Like, you just got to get through it. Yeah. It gets better. And there's a select few adults that I know are like, oh man, no, 8th grade is where it was at. And like, really we're thriving. I
peaked in middle school.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah. You should reflect on that if that's the case. But I don't know. First I went through a 7th through 12th grade school. So even if you were an 8th grader, you were still like low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Anyways, so at this point though, as I'm talking about, anxiety really using embarrassment as her henchman to bottle up the emotions.
Oh,
and so did you notice that like they were thrown into a bottle up your feelings?
Embarrassment was the one that put them in the bottle?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so brilliant.
That's a driving force.
That embarrassment was what bottled up the emotions. Yeah. And then they all said in the bottle, we're suppressed emotions.
Yeah.
And then they went and they were in the same cell as the deep dark secrets. Right. And so it's crazy. I love all the illustrations.
So there's so much shame, right?
Yeah.
Like when that's happening, it's really done out of shame with the deep dark emotions.
Yeah.
Like,
and
let's bury this.
Yeah. And then Riley's like core, like things that she enjoyed, like her favorite boy band, she all of a sudden was like, I don't really, you know.
The things you're willing to compromise on. There's this real, it's a challenging phase where your core beliefs can sometimes be challenged.
Yeah.
And that's what you see when the islands are changing, when the voice turns into one filled with insecurity if I'm not enough.
Right. And I just wish that we could tell every kid in that age, like, just celebrate all people and all their interests, like curious culture, like just try to understand each other instead of trying to like be what you think the other person wants you to be. Just be you. I mean, like, imagine if all the kids blossomed into a more pure version of themselves in those years. You know, the world would just change.
I think that'd be really beautiful. And there are a lot of messages like in schools, and I know from parents that sound like that. We're just like, kids are also just growing up in the petri dish of our toxic culture.
I know.
And that's what's sad. That is sad. And I think there are some things that we can do though when it comes to really solidifying that strong base of family, because I do feel like friendships are clearly important and being involved in extracurricular things is important, but I tend to look around at the scene with how our time is divided when our kids get to that age.
Yeah.
And how much family time is being had.
Yeah.
Like how much of it is being prioritized or made to be fun and made to be like an opportunity to really connect, to share. And maybe the answer is yes for your home, and that's beautiful and wonderful. But
it is rare.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit hit and miss when I look around and observe. And it's an important time to support our kids even when they're challenging.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, because like a family nowadays really is just a group of people who are also dealing with a whole bunch of negative internal thoughts. So it's hard for them to come together and like create safe space. And but man, it's crazy because like you probably know the answer to this, but like, you know, our brain has a billion things going on at once. Our consciousness makes up just a tiny fraction of our brain power, right? Like there's what is it, like less than 10% of our brain is used?
A lot of our brain is being used to just like live. Like our heart is beating, our lungs are breathing.
So it's like our conscious, like our subconscious and everything, and our nervous system, everything is all working in instinct automatically. And then every once in a while, it'll deliver something to our consciousness to like, okay, we think that you should know this, but it's like, oh gosh, I wish I could just override the whole thing. No, I want all the good thoughts only. You guys just don't even give me the negative thoughts, you know?
But that's another beautiful lesson from this movie is that you need to accept all thoughts.
Right.
And it's really like going to the scene. Again, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I'm thinking about the scene where anxiety, it's like a panic attack that's happening. She's in the penalty box. Riley's in the penalty box. Anxiety is it's a storm. It's a storm. Now, everyone is trying to get her attention.
Yeah.
Right? Get anxiety's attention. And what worked? Was it shame? Was it like, what are you doing? This is wrong. Stop it. You can get out of this. You know, was it that? No. Joy came up and calmly and compassionately said, it's okay. Like, you don't have to do this alone. Like, those aren't the exact words that she said, I'm forgetting, but the message was one of like, you have a purpose. I know you were trying to help, but you can let go. You don't have to try and force control over this situation. And that's really what anxiety is doing. It's this false belief of being able to have more control over a situation than we really do.
Totally. Yeah. Sorry, I kind of became emotional there as you were talking about it.
I like emotions. Tell me what's coming up for you.
Well, I mean, just that feeling of like a storm, and then her in that anxiety attack, and I remember her breathing and like just totally ruminating, and experiencing that a lot, and then for 1 second, for Joy to be the counter, like the opposite emotion.
And maybe like I'd say represented by a sense of hope, right? It's a hopeful voice that we have to cultivate to speak to our own parts. And that's a lot of what I teach my clients and I loved, at the end too, it's anxiety, sipping her anxiety. I
didn't notice that.
Yeah, in her
in her chair
recliner, right? And the way that I often describe it to clients as I'm coaching them, and I like to be quite visual, is to picture like a theater, I guess it could be a movie theater, but I picture more of like an actors theater, and whatever main character, anxiety being the example here, is on the center stage, and finding a way to coach and say to that part, hey, I know that you were here trying to protect me, and thank you.
Yeah.
You've done such a good job of helping me, but I need you to know that wise Keilani is here, and I've got it. And what I'd love for you to do is actually step off the stage, and I have a seat for you right here.
Yeah.
It's going to be perfect. You can still be present. I want you to be here, but you don't have to put the energy forth in being in the center stage. Can you soften that?
Yeah.
I've got it.
Right.
And that's really what happened, was this trade from Joy being able to coach through that in this really calm and compassionate way, and anxiety taking a bit of a chill pill. And allowing for these other emotions to reintegrate instead of blocking them.
Totally. Yeah. And also just like, the thinking of Joy in the moment of fear, where it's kind of like being present and thankful for because that's the opposite action of like ruminating about the past or the future, and just allowing it to just hijack everything. But then a moment of like stillness and joy to kind of be like, oh no, like from Riley's perspective,
Yeah.
I'm at hockey camp. This is a dream. I'm with my friends. This is so great.
Right.
You know, and
Because
so
gratitude only happens in being present.
right. And joyful. Yeah. And then joy is like the product of gratitude or vice versa. And so, it was it was so beautifully done. The way that they like, you could tell that like some experts, professionals wrote that movie.
They have therapists and psychologists on staff to
That's
help
awesome.
guide.
But they were like good ones. Cause like, sometimes you have people like that want to offer mental health tips or whatever, and they suck and they like have just terrible advice.
Oh no, yeah, they sought out the good ones.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it, right? And another piece that I think, tying back into what we were speaking to, it being more difficult in adulthood to find joy, I think about the scene kind of in the middle of the movie where anxiety is hijacking imagination.
Yes.
These, like, I don't know what to call them, like jelly beans, imagination jelly beans.
Just the workers,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, little worker beans.
Worker beans.
And telling them to fortune tell the worst case scenarios, to fortune tell and catastrophize, and like we have to eliminate any like potential outcome. And how many nights have you stayed awake in that same state?
Yeah.
Of panic and overthinking when there was no positive outcome or benefit in doing that.
Totally. And that was a self-discovery that I had about just over a year ago, where I realized that I was using my imagination for like just terrible scenarios. And I kept thinking, remember, like I'm a creative person and I have like this very vivid imagination, but like, why am I not coming up with anything creative lately?
I remember us talking about that. Yeah, it was totally featured right here.
Right. And when that part was in the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was a personal discovery. So
I hope so many people when watching this movie felt that, because I think that was the goal. There was a real goal of like someone had a lot of heart in creating this movie, or many of the people did, because these are all themes that everyone can understand if you sit with it long enough.
Totally.
And reflect on it.
Yeah. But no, I love that part where they said like she completely hijacked imagination. Because anxiety is really the product of trying to predict the future or trying to ruminate in the past. And your imagination is so necessary for to like create try to fortune tell.
And I think the difference from shifting from childhood into adulthood and being amid the change means having one foot in each world.
Yeah.
Is that in childhood, our imagination gets to be used with whimsy and fantasy. And this transition into adulthood means you do need to know yourself a bit better, because the best case scenario is to use your imagination to dream of the future that you want.
Yes.
Which is based on the skills you have, the things that bring you joy and excitement, the direction you want to go in life, and you need to know yourself to get there.
Totally.
I think you need to have some insight into who you want to be and what's important to you in order to use those imagination jelly beans for good use in order to help them create the world that you want.
Right.
Instead of that space of anxiety, just fortune telling every possible negative outcome.
Right.
Because that keeps you in survival mode. And when you can't, like, survival mode and really thriving are different.
Yeah.
And to me, thriving isn't just in, do I have the material possessions, et cetera, is, do I feel good about myself?
Right. Yeah.
Do I like the direction that I'm cultivating for my life? Are the actions that I'm taking now going to benefit me down the road?
Totally.
Is the vision I have for my life and my goals going to be something that I'm proud of in a year, in 5 years? Like, that feels good.
Yeah. I was actually having this conversation just yesterday about like, what is some objective, like, moral compass that each person has, and that I kind of figured that it's sort of the agreement that you have with yourself. So
Yeah.
like but I love the idea of taking your imagination and using it for good instead of like catastrophizing. Because if you use your imagination to like create who do I want to be in 1 year or 5 years, and then get really specific and like actually feel what it feels like to be that person, because then that is your guiding force, and that's your like true north, your moral your objective place, because
Right.
it's like the agreement that you made with yourself, that the person that you want to become. Every time you don't feel those feelings, that tells you that you're not on the right track, you know? So it's like a great gauge, like a compass to set to, because as you progress forward and you're like, okay, I remember in 1 year, I want to feel this way in this situation. So this anxiety is derailing me. I'm not, and so I'm basically betraying myself. I'm not living to the agreement that I made with myself. That is an objective place to live, you know?
I think it gives you some good bumpers
Yeah,
in life.
exactly.
Because it's not as if, as we've learned, it's not as if we can eliminate anxiety or we can eliminate fear. In fact,
Yeah.
they have really productive and helpful places.
Totally.
But it is a good indication of when we maybe need to reevaluate if it's taking too much control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And so that's beautiful. And it brings me back to thinking through the mission statement that we worked through and talked about at one time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why that activity is so fun. And it's fun to come back and reevaluate every few months sometimes, because we do change.
Totally.
And maybe there's a new island that's been built in that time
Yeah.
that we want to direct our attention and focus to, or we've learned something more about ourselves, because that's really the goal. Am I learning and am I being curious about myself so that I can live more freely in the world, accepting all my parts, and really living an authentic and purpose-driven life? Then there isn't as much of a need for anxiety.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it will come out more appropriately rather than running rampant.
Totally. Yeah. And I love that in Inside Out 2, they highlighted that every emotion has a role, and they do have a place at the control panel.
Yes.
But like one can have too much control, and that's where it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
even with like, if Joy were ruthlessly trying to maintain control and not allowing other emotions, that's also not good.
Yeah.
That's also not healthy. We have unpleasant and pleasant emotions, but there are not good and bad emotions.
Right.
You know, there is not, when we categorize it that way in such a black and white linear thinking, it doesn't allow us to view these emotions that are unpleasant as valuable guests meant to help teach us.
Totally. Yeah. Like greet each emotion and say, like, for example, I think they use the analogy of like, you know, anxiety is good to, like, if you have a test that you need to study for, and like, oh gosh, I needed, like, thank you, anxiety. Wow, you reminded me of this very important timeline coming up. So it's like, no, definitely you have an important role, but you also only have a role, a very, you know, let's limit yourself, because like my brain is this crazy chaotic place, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that, but where anxiety is just the loudest voice in my head. Not right now, which is great. You know, you know why, but
maybe more prone to that direction. And I understand that too. I'm more prone towards anxiety as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken a lot of practice to get to a place of really inviting and sitting with and understanding my emotions. So there's not really conflict between them anymore, at least not right now. And that feels really peaceful, because that means if there is something that I feel, I can really welcome it in and invite it and try to understand it.
Yeah.
And there's less resistance then. And what we resist persists. Like, if we're not willing to accept, and that's really, again, another theme in the movie, like Riley not being able to accept, oh, there's big changes that come with this time frame too, changes in school and friendships.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? How do I navigate that? It's kind of a digging in of the heels and feeling like I've got to have control of this situation. I've got to make new friends at this new school. I've got to, like, I want to override what might naturally be unfolding.
Totally. Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's coming from a fearful place. I have read this poem before, but as we're talking about emotions being our guest, I felt like it was appropriate to read Rumi's poem, The Guest House.
Oh, yeah.
This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Yeah, that's super appropriate. Yeah.
And I should look up. I'm not sure when this poem was written, but this was a truth that was known.
Was it after
a
Inside
long
Out
time
too?
ago?
I'm just kidding.
It was written last week. This is just a truth of human emotion. The 13th century.
Oh, geez, the 1200s.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to do that.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Rumi was the person who wrote this poem, The Guest House, in the 13th century.
It's ironic
so this was true. This is just human nature.
It's ironic that he wrote The Guest House and his name was Rumi, like roommate.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't think about that
Sorry,
at all.
that was a dad joke.
As we we're retreating to our puberty.
I was gonna say
days.
you never outgrow.
You never, yeah.
Like I'm still a very middle school minded boy who I make
on
poop
poop
jokes. Right? Yeah.
and, yeah.
Every day of my life. Now
Every day.
Now I have a huge repertoire of dad jokes, and I don't know, but I don't think that they're actually funny. I just like making people uncomfortable.
I think we should analyze that about you. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be
Because
we'll start a whole series.
If I can create an awkward moment, it's funny for me. It's entertaining for me. You know?
What?
Yeah.
No.
So if I say a dad joke, but then people usually laugh when I say a dad joke because it is so stupid. But a lot of them are really clever. I'm not gonna lie. If I'm gonna,
you have some winners, but there's a lot of duds.
I know, and I take my chances. I gotta say, I can't be quiet when I have a dud. You know?
Oh gosh, it's because of the ADD, man. It just starts flying
I know.
out.
That's true. Okay, the pain is gone.
Okay, focus up. Anyways, this was a super cute movie. Everyone should go watch it with their kids or with a kid that even it doesn't even have to be a kid. You could have really great discussions around this movie no matter your age. And you should. Don't just leave it in the theater, but keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. Keep trying to understand how it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because it does, the premise of the whole movie is that they've created this really creative illustration of how to make it easy to understand for kids, for everyone.
Right.
And I feel like as a parent, a caretaker, whatever, it is now your responsibility to have those conversations with your kids to sort of tie the loose ends and help them understand from your experience I've experienced these negative thoughts. And then it also creates this moment of vulnerability where your kids can actually look behind the curtain of what's going on in your brain,
right,
and understand you. And then because then they are going to inevitably experience those things. Absolutely. So if you give them those warnings or those little lessons early in life, and then they can reference that and say, oh, remember that conversation with my dad about the internal negative talk and how to you can greet it, but you don't have to let it rule over.
And have the conversations not in a moment of crisis, but roll it out now so that you're kind of sticking a pin for that to be an opportunity to revisit.
Right.
And keep building upon.
Yeah. Your kids, you're on your way home right after going to the movies. Such a beautiful, such a wonderful family time. Mm-hmm. Hey guys, what are your takeaways? Well, here's mine. Those are such sweet, precious moments. Those are going to be core memories for them, which is a reference to Inside Out. But yeah, I'm so sorry. I was thinking.
No. I have one extra thought too. So keep going.
Yeah. I love that they use islands for those
her beliefs.
Yeah, because we've talked about islands as being like objective places, and we've used that illustration where if you stray off of the island into the ocean and being tossed by the waves, then you've like sort of abandoned that like objective place. So I like that islands were a thing that I don't know if they had that same thought.
Well, and it does. I mean, it's even making me think about what would our islands be. That could be a really fun discussion as a family too, like around the dinner table. What are your core islands? Because the other thing is to notice that they change.
Yeah.
And even in adults, they change. For example, 5 years ago, I did not have Podcast Island.
Right.
I now do.
Yeah.
I do. And it's a part of my vision and my goal. And it's a part of what brings joy and authenticity and a union of my parts of those emotions, you know? And so that's really cool and exciting. And so that's another thing that I think in terms of transitioning into adulthood that we could help influence our kids to understand and see is you get to still create and explore for the rest of your life the things that bring you joy and to cultivate them. And the best way to do that, to teach your kids, isn't actually in just having these conversations, but in doing the work. To understand your feelings, to have the vulnerable moments to reflect, because that's going to build intimacy in the relationships that you have with your children and with others. And we cannot guide someone past a point that we've gone. Like I can't teach someone calculus if I don't know how to do calculus. That's going to be terrible. Also, I don't know how to do calculus.
Wait, but you're Asian.
I know that one. It skipped me.
I'm also deprived in the math department. My brothers are both brilliant in math though. So, but anyway,
but they're probably not funny. No, just kidding.
No, they're okay.
And so, anyways, just we need to model that, and our children are our teachers. Yeah. And highlighting when perhaps we've skipped a step and need to revisit.
Totally. Yeah, and they'll be on there, and kids beautifully are programmed with brutal honesty. And then so they'll tell you when you're failing, like my kids tell me all the time. Oh no. But but it's great to actually have a lot of like introspection and be honest with yourself and really like check in with yourself, because then you can still evolve when you're a 42-year-old dude like me, you know? So, that's the goal. My hope is like always be evolving. Yeah. Like, use your growth as an opportunity to help others. Totally. And trust in your ability to continually recreate yourself. Yeah. And that's, reflecting, once again, bringing it full circle to Cassie, our guest last week. Like, she recreated a lot of her islands of who she was. Yeah. And it all began with intention. Totally. Intention. Where is your intention? Don't let it just be in survival. Don't let it just be in anxiety, having the control panel and what they want to avoid or manipulate or control. Yeah. Have intention towards the life that you want, because that will bring you to a place of understanding what you need to give up and let go of in order to create what you want. Totally. Yeah. And it's like, that's a reminder that anger also has a role. Like, I was listening to The Mountain Is You the other day, and I realized that I had been suppressing my anger a lot, because I've believed that anger doesn't have a place ever, that you can solve any problem without anger. It's never necessary. But in what I was listening to, she says that, like, if you are in a place in life that you don't want to be, like, get mad, like, rage about it. It's okay to be mad, because that's going to be a compelling force to drive you out of that. And so, like, Cassie's example, her story, I don't know if she had that anger in like her low points, but I'm assuming, because I also experienced like seasons of life where like my impulse is completely controlled. And I got so mad at myself. I was like, this needs to change. I have to change. Like, I'm so sick of these parts of my life. So then it's like, yes, anger can be so helpful, because it's a fire. You know, like
productive anger.
Yeah.
Productive anger, when it's right, it can be if we understand it.
Yeah, but
'Cause
don't let
I
it
think
control
so
you.
Easily, it can go from anger to shame to I want to numb.
Yeah.
To this cycle of numbing our pain, and the hope would be then that anger actually inspires one to take some really courageous steps.
Yeah.
And to let that be a fuel for the life that you want to have and cultivate.
Right.
So that's another really core example of, again, of course I'm going to preach this, but it really is my like life mission. When we can courageously want to explore ourselves, we have more emotional maturity to handle what life has to throw at us and to be our best selves.
Yeah.
To have healthy relationships, which really create a foundation of community and support that we need to thrive as human beings.
Yeah.
Like evolutionarily, biologically, we need that. People live longer when they have healthy relationships around them.
Mm-hmm.
And thrive. And we know that it's also the thing that creates resilience when someone has gone through trauma is, do you have people that love and care about you and support you?
Yeah.
Not only that, though, we need to make sure that we're wanting to evolve for our own happiness.
Totally.
There is like, if you're stuck in the mud and you're saying, well, that's just the way it was. That's how I grew up. This is how it is. Those might be things that you want to question and understand a little bit more, because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this
beautiful
discussion.
conversation. Yeah.
It's so fun. We could go on and on, but
Go watch Inside Out
go watch
too.
Inside Out too.
Tell us what you thought.
Yeah, we'd love to know. Tell us in the comments if there are any themes that we discussed and you resonated with. And then I just want to let everyone know, I know we're going to be sharing the ad, or you already have, for the women's retreat coming up. The other thing that I want to promote is that I do have some openings for a very exciting coaching program called The Shift. And you can schedule a free 30-minute discovery call with me. The link is on our community page, but it will also be in the link tree in the description of the YouTube page and in the description of the video.
Okay.
And I'm really excited to work with people who are motivated to make some positive changes in their life with high intention and a lot of excitement. And I've already had really promising and exciting results from clients that I've worked with. So I'm so excited to share this with others.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for people who get to work with you because, you're a rock star. So don't pass
so
up on that
sweet.
opportunity.
It's such an honor to work with anyone that I get the chance to, and to have this special time with anyone who is listening to our podcast. Thank you for being a part of our delightful family. And I hope that you take care of yourself today and are kind to yourself. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.